first time in roughly 2 decades, Byron Brown's name will not appear on the primary ballot for Buffalo mayor. Instead, 5 candidates are vying for the second floor of City Hall.
Chris Scanlon currently serves as Buffalo's acting mayor, stepping into that role after Brown resigned in October. Scanlon was first elected to the Common Council 12 years ago, serving the South District.
Sean Ryan represents New York's 61st Senate District, which includes parts of the city of Buffalo. He's chairman for the Senate's Committee on Commerce, Economic Development, and Small Business.
Anthony Tyson Thompson says he's not a politician, rather a public servant. Thompson previously worked for Assembly Majority Leader Crystal Peoples-Stokes as communications director.
Garnell Whitfield Jr. was appointed Buffalo Fire Commissioner in 2010, a position he held until his retirement in 2017. He now serves on the 514 Permanent Memorial Commission and Board of Directors for Roswell Park Comprehensive Cancer Center.
Rasheed Wyatt represents the University District on the Common Council. He's chairman of the city's Civil Service Committee and serves on the Police Oversight and Budget Committees, among others. His current term on the council expires at the end of 2027.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the historic Kavinoky Theater on the campus of D'Youville University for News 4's debate for the Buffalo mayoral Democratic primary. I'm Dave Graber.
And I'm Marley Tuskus. Over the next hour, we are asking the 5 candidates on June's ballot the questions you want answered.
First, we'll go over the rules for tonight's debate. There will be no opening statements, gentlemen. The candidates will have 90 seconds to answer their questions. Then there will be 90 seconds allotted for any and all follow-ups and rebuttals.
You, the candidates, will each have 30 seconds for closing statements. At the sound of the bell, your time is up. We want to get right to our first question about Buffalo's budget. The city of Buffalo is facing financial crisis with a budget deficit projected around $40 million. The recently approved state budget includes multiple bailouts for Buffalo, each of them falling in line with proposals submitted by Mr. Scanlon.
So our question tonight to each of the candidates, and we will prompt you, what is the best way to get Buffalo out of the red without relying too heavily on taxpayers? And if elected, will your budget include a tax increase? Gentlemen, as you know, we've chosen names before this debate. And with that, Mr. Wyatt, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Dave, and thank you for everyone that's out here today regarding this important time in our city's history. The budget has continued to be a big issue, and as you know, for several years, this budget was no different. I was one of 2 that voted against the budget again, and not because I was grandstanding because I was running for mayor, but because it didn't make sense again. We're selling off properties. We're selling, the controller just said that the properties that we're selling were getting us $7 million. Why do we continue to make these same mistakes and it all falls back on the taxpayer? Every bad decision falls back on the taxpayer. And so, again, I didn't vote for the budget because of those issues. But the other thing is, I think we could make some decisions that doesn't make it it hurts the taxpayer. You know, we could be cutting overtime for police and fire. We could cut the administration staff. You know, right now they have about 11 people making over $100,000. So while everybody else, while they're eating steak and lobster, everybody else is eating hamburger. So we have to make good, strong decisions that make sense. And so if I am elected mayor, I will look at practical things that don't fall back on the taxpayer, because many times the same bad decisions fall back on who? The taxpayer.
Mr. Scanlon, would you like to rebut? He essentially invoked your administration.
Sure. Thank you. First of all, Marley, Dave, thank you and Channel 4 for hosting us at D'Youville University. Thank you for having us here. You know, I think there's 2 ways you can look at our budget situation. A doom and gloom scenario and the fact that people think Buffalo's best days are behind them. People up here feel that way. I don't. I look at our budget as an opportunity. I look at our challenges as an opportunity for us to get better. I can tell you when I arrived in the mayor's office back in October, we were faced with a $17 million hole in the current fiscal year. And through vacancy control measures, freeze on spending throughout the different departments, we were able to close that gap this year. And you referenced a $40 million hole. No, it was a $70 million hole that we were faced in the upcoming fiscal year. We got to work. We decided we had to do more with less. We cut $30 million out of the budget through direct cuts to departments and other vacancy control measures. We got creative and came up with $15 million in additional revenue. And then I take umbrage with the fact that they were referred to as bailouts. We got very creative. We could have gone to New York State and asked for money. We didn't. We decided we would fix this situation ourselves. We asked for authorization for 2 key initiatives. One being a 3% hotel occupancy tax on hotel rooms in the city of Buffalo, which equates to about $4 on a hotel room that would be paid almost exclusively by out-of-town visitors who utilize our services and would keep Buffalo beautiful. The other being the Buffalo Parking and Mobility Authority, which although some think it's a gimmick, it's not. It's a strategic plan over the next 4 years to use proceeds of those sales along with recurring revenue that'll come from that to rectify the budget over the course of the next several years.
Thank you, Mr. Scanlon. Mr. Whitfield, to you, sir. The question is, what is the best way to get Buffalo out of the red without relying too heavily on taxpayers? And if elected, will your budget include a tax increase?
Well, thank you. As I've always said, the first thing to do to address this issue is to find out why we got here, how we got here, what the deficit is. We need to understand how we got here, what these systems are, what the problems are within our current systems that cause this issue. And so I would ask for an independent audit of the books of the city of Buffalo. This has been a moving target from day one. We still do not have real clarity on where we are in terms of our deficit. I believe that the proposals are short-term political proposals to systemic generational issues. And I think that we need to have leadership that brings people together, that addresses this in a inclusive way. We need to bring the people, the residents of the city, and other departments, other people, Buffalo Fiscal Authority, all of these need to be at the table. And we need to understand that we need a plan that whoever the mayor is going forward, that the community gets behind and supports, one that has a chance of being successful.
Thank you, Mr. Whitfield. Mr. Tyson Thompson, you have the floor, sir. What is the best way to get Buffalo out of the red without relying too heavily on taxpayers?
Hey, thank you so much for the question, and so happy to be here for this important debate and conversation. So, first and foremost, this is a structural deficit. It's at this point systemic. This has been years and years of overestimating revenue and underestimating the cost. We have to be smart. We have to be, just honest with our people. We're making these budgets. It seems as though we're just having a pie in the sky, a wag, a wild, blank guess. We have to be honest with it. First, we have to do a full audit of our operations, figure out where our inefficiency lies, and then from there, figure out how we can keep frontline services. We're not going to tax our way out of the situation, and there's no silver bullet for it. This is not an episode of West Wing. But we have to do the hard, boring work of going over the budget first, then figuring out where the inefficiency lies, and then from there, finding equitable ways to structure the deficit. Maybe by raising property taxes, but it has to be equitably, not just from 0 to 8%, not just the tax bid or bid tax of 8%. We got to be strategic. And I think the best way to do it is to expand the tax base in the city of Buffalo. We have to make sure that as mayor, that I'll be bringing new industries to Buffalo, both public and private, to make sure that we're creating a thriving economy where people can work and people come to Buffalo for business, and then also expand and solve our deficit issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Scanlon, to you now. You are in the unique situation where your proposed budget, which includes an 8% property tax increase, has passed the council, although with some reluctance. Your administration has presented a contingency plan of borrowing $30 million if revenue from your parking authority and bed tax does not pan out. Questions by some county and city leaders still remain on whether these two strategies will actually fill that multi-million-dollar gap. How will you ensure this will not fall on taxpayers down the road?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, it's not a matter of if we receive that revenue, it's a matter of when. And if for some reason it did not happen in the current fiscal year, we could borrow for the short period of time until that money comes in to pay that back. But I can tell you the gimmicks that are being talked about aren't the things that we're doing. These are strategic initiatives that will satisfy the city of Buffalo's budget and set us on a path to fiscal solvency in the next few years. The gimmicks that we've heard talked about are the deficit borrowing and things like that. Borrowing $75, $150, $200 million to try and fix the budget. That's like putting your mortgage payment that you can't afford on a credit card. And anyone who has a mortgage knows that's not the right way to do things. But we got to work. We cut $30 million out of the budget, went to New York State, worked with our partners in government, despite opposition from people on this stage to those initiatives. And those initiatives that we're talking about do not lead to $1 being laid at the feet of our taxpayers. This is $40–50 million coming in through the proceeds of the sale of the parking ramp, alleviating the city of Buffalo of the maintenance and capital costs associated with that, while ensuring a yearly revenue continues to flow to the city of Buffalo. So again, we went to work. We got things done on behalf of the city of Buffalo, on behalf of our residents, working with the Common Council, who passed the budget with very few amendments to it. And again, so we're prepared to move forward. And over the course of next years, if you look at our 4-year plan, you see how we rectify the structural indifference.
Thank you, Mr. Scanlon. We turn now to Mr. Ryan. Your proposal for the city's budget was not adopted by the state legislature. So do you still stand by your plan to issue debt service financing? And if elected, will your budget include a tax increase?
Yeah, I do stand by that plan. My campaign is about fixing the basics, potholes, plowing the streets. And you can't do that if you're broke. And one thing is for sure, the city is broke. They don't know how much their debt is this year, in 26, and 27. But one thing we do know is there's a structural imbalance. So the debt's following next year. We need to bring in the comptroller, Tom DiNapoli, to do an A to Z audit of the city, figure out how much our structural debt is, and then do what a business would do. If the city of Buffalo was a business, it would be a $600 million business, and they would restructure. That's the only way to avoid catastrophic increases, but also to get us back on balance. But you know what else we have to stop doing? We have to stop giving away taxpayer dollars. Chris Scanlon has received tens of thousands of dollars from Carl Palladino, and Carl Palladino has received tens of millions of dollars from the city of Buffalo. That ratio, like Chris, I would say you're a cheap date on this one. But I will tell you this. I'm going to take a pledge, and I wonder if Chris Scanlon, will you take the Palladino pledge with me? Will you stop giving away money?
Mr. Ryan and gentlemen, we are asking the questions. We are telling candidates not to ask questions.
Sure.
Please, if you'd like to ask us to ask a question, we will not, but you may do that.
I'll take the Palladino pledge, and that pledge is to stop giving money to Palladino and his MAGA allies.
We do have to move on, but Mr. Scanlon, you have an opportunity to rebut.
That didn't take long. I thought that would come up pretty soon tonight. But so we are improving services, unlike the senator said. We are fixing potholes. We've addressed 3,000 potholes since I came into office. We've allocated $17 million, the most in years, to repaving our streets. Nearly 200 streets will be repaved this year. And as far as the assertion that Carl Palladino is funding my campaign and fueling my campaign, I have not received $1 in this campaign from Carl Palladino. Who is fueling and funding my campaign are the 1,700 donors in Buffalo and Western New York who are funding my campaign. 97% of which are Buffalo and Western New York residents. 3,000 people requesting lawn signs. These are the people who are fueling my campaign, not special interest groups from Albany and New York City. And again, Carl Palladino has not donated a dollar. It's been brought up several times in the past and in recent days about William Palladino. William Palladino is the owner and CEO of Ellicott Development and a personal friend. William Palladino has donated to my campaign. And while we're talking about William Palladino, he is the same William Palladino that recently donated land to the city of Buffalo free of charge, where will house permanently the 514 Memorial. He's the one working with the city of Buffalo and financially assisting the city of Buffalo to open a new animal shelter. So I will continue to work with William Palladino as long as I am mayor.
Okay, we have to move on now.
We're moving on.
Sticking with you, Mr. Ryan, we allotted a minute 30 for that rebuttal. Sticking with you, Mr. Ryan, for this next question, you and Mr. Scanlon each submitted proposals to the state to help close the city's anticipated $40 million budget shortfall. Why do you think Governor Kathy Hochul chose your opponent's plans over yours? And though you've labeled Scanlon's plan a gimmick, you voted for it as part of the state budget. So how should voters view these contradictions?
So the city of Buffalo, asked for the plan of least resistance, the plan that would get the acting mayor through this budget year. It's tradition of the state is to defer to the mayor, whether they're elected or acting. So we deferred. They came and asked for it. We said, I would like to offer you other tools. They didn't want the other tools. We advised them that selling the parking ramps was a bad idea because you don't sell assets that generate money. And also, the amount of money they say they're going to get for the parking ramp, is highly speculative. All this does is kick the can. It's a gimmick. It doesn't solve next year's problem. Maybe it solves this year's problem if everything works right. The way to get out of our financial mess is to come clean, to acknowledge what is our long-term structural deficit, have a plan to do that, and you restructure, just like the private sector would do. That's the way to get the city back on track, but also to avoid catastrophic increases in property taxes. Buffalo deserves better. They want their basic services back, and that's what I'm going to give them when I'm mayor of the city of Buffalo.
All right, thank you. Mr. Scanlon, we turn now to you for our next question. Your critics have described you as Byron Brown 2.0. In fact, you heavily backed Brown during his write-in campaign in the last mayoral election. What will you do to assure voters that you are not coming to the table with the baggage of the previous administration, despite your ties to it?
I think that I've displayed that very clearly in my first 8 months as mayor. We showed up day one, faced with a number of different challenges, and got to work. We passed the largest capital budget in the city's history, working with our partners in government and the Buffalo Public Schools. We put together a budget that sets the city of Buffalo on a path to fiscal solvency. And as far as other plans that are out there, we will not saddle residents with $75, $150, $200 million worth of additional debt that the taxpayers are responsible to pay back. Instead, we will bring $40, $50 million in through the purchase of those ramps, in addition to the occupancy tax, ensure a recurring revenue, if you look at the legislation, how it works out. And then we will also alleviate the city of Buffalo of those maintenance and capital costs. And I can tell you, I think to your previous question, it wasn't the senator's plan for deficit borrowing wasn't passed because, like most people I talked to, I don't think the members of the New York State legislature thought it was a good idea. Again, it's akin to borrowing money or using your credit card to pay your mortgage when you can't afford it. And I would ask the senator, if someone came to his house and offered him, if his house was valued at $500,000, offered him $500,000 for the house, said you can stay in the house, you can hold title to the house, we'll also fix up any windows, roof, landscaping, whatever else you might need. And then on top of that, I'm going to throw a lemonade stand out front, and we'll split any of the proceeds with you as well. I think he would take that deal, and that's the Buffalo Parking and Mobility Authority.
Mr. Ryan, you have a minute 30?
I do want to remind you, gentlemen, based on the rules, the minute 30 is for everyone during the rebuttal process. But Mr. Ryan, we will start with you.
The acting mayor has a fundamental misunderstanding of municipal finance. Your house is not the same as running a $600 million city. I mean, he just said that he's going to do short-term borrowing, which is the most expensive of borrowing that you can do. When businesses get into a jam, they restructure their debt. That's how you were able to keep services going and to avoid the catastrophic increases in property taxes. Right now, the city of Buffalo doesn't know if they're going to be in balance at the end of the year. But I think there's some irony to this idea that the acting mayor is going to get us out of this mess. He seems to forget that for the last 12 years, he's been in leadership of in City Hall. He's been chair of the Finance Committee. He's been the president of the City Council, and he voted on every one of the unbalanced budgets. He should know how unbalanced they are because he voted for them.
Gentlemen, thank you. We're moving
Mr.
on.
Wyatt?
We are moving on.
We have
lots of 30 seconds. 30 seconds.
The fundamental
30 seconds for Mr.
misunderstanding
Wyatt.
is, I mean, Dave pointed at me. So.
There was, Mr. Scanlon had a rebut for 30 seconds. 30 seconds, Mr. Scanlon.
Senator Ryan's the one with the fundamental misunderstanding.
He said he was ready to
Wyatt
go.
his hand up first.
Yeah.
Mr. Wyatt has the
Go
next
ahead.
question. But Mr. Scanlon was going to rebut. Is that true? Yes. Mr. Scanlon was going to rebut. 30 seconds to Mr. Scanlon, please.
Yeah, the fundamental misunderstanding here is Senator Ryan. He doesn't understand city government and the role that the council plays. We cannot increase taxes. We have very limited authority to do those types of things. So when he talks about a fundamental misunderstanding and the fact that I've been in office for 12 years, 13 years, that's the exact same period of time that the senator's been in Albany, and we have not received $1 increase to our permanent state aid payment. So I wish he would go back to Albany and continue to fight for Buffalo to bring the state resources to the city.
Thank you, Mr. Scanlon. Mr. Wyatt, to you now. You have often positioned yourself as a contrarian to the decisions made by the previous administration and the rest of the council. You began some of your talking points tonight. To that point, you were one of the two council members, as you mentioned, who voted against the budget last week. You voted it down in previous years as well. The question is, if elected, how will you work to unify government?
Well, Dave, I think one of the things that has happened so often in city government is that the council has always been the last to know. There are selected few that the mayor will work with and come through with things, but we need a unified front. We all need to be coming together, and we all need to be talking to the residents. The residents are the one that's footing the bill in a lot of cases, and they don't get the conversation. So recently, I went forth in asking the council, working with the council members, to change the date for the receive the budget. It didn't work as well as I thought because I thought it would have been more engagement. It was only 1 or 2 engagements, but I think that's critically important. If we're going to change Buffalo, we're going to find the priorities that we can afford to address. We have to put the taxpayer in place, and we have to hear from them. In these other scenarios, they're not talking about the taxpayer. They're talking about their own issues. They're talking about going back and forth between them. But the people who are on the streets right now, the people who are making only $30,000 a year, the median income is $48,000. But we have people in City Hall who are making 6 figures. That doesn't make sense. And it doesn't equate to a fiscally sound budget, and it doesn't equate to long-term sustainability. And so, again, we have to start looking at what things we need to cut. I just looked at the comptroller's report. She talked about in her report, we have to right-size government. I've been saying that over and over again. Nobody else was talking about that. The overtime is something that we just ignore, but it's $127 million over 5 years. How do we continue to do that and expect to have quality services or good, decent services for the taxpayers?
Mr. White, thank you very much. Mr. Tyson Thompson, this next question is for you. Buffalo is the second largest city in the state. You've never been elected to an office. Your professional political experience starts and stops in the state assembly, where you served as communications director for Crystal People Stokes, the majority leader. You also have not held a campaign event since your initial announcement to join the campaign. Why should voters have confidence in a candidate with such little experience and name recognition who has done little to change that fact throughout this campaign?
Oh, no, Dave, I think you're quite wrong on that. I'm a product of Buffalo and, a son of this city. I've been engaged my entire life. I grew up on Buffalo's east side, born and raised in one of the worst zip codes, not only in this city, but in this country. I've had to work my way up through every system and structure, every place, going against systems and structures that often make me feel unheard and unseen. My entire ethos, pathos, and logos has been about transformation. I started off as a kid working in charities and pot kitchens, going to school to get a degree in political science and criminal justice, interning even for the county Democrats, working on campaigns throughout this country, becoming a philanthropic fundraiser, raising millions of dollars for nonprofits all across this country for transformation. When I was back in Buffalo, I was working at the vac site during the pandemic. That's why Crystal People Stokes chose to pick me, because of the good work that I was doing. Not for popularity or for notoriety, but for the work, for transforming our communities. You see, I deserve to be, or I'm running to be mayor because I believe in this city, right? But I also believe we have a lot of work to do. There are structural issues that are going on, and we can't get past them because we have the same old leaders doing the same old thing, but yet the Buffalo stays the same way. Only thing that changes is these guys' titles. I'm running for mayor because I have the skill capacity to do the job, and from day one, that's what I plan to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I rebut?
There was no...
He said the same old leader, so he's talking about us. So
Yeah, I am.
Mr. Wyatt, sure.
I'm talking about...
I don't consider myself
for you
old,
guys. Yeah.
but I definitely...
All right, gentlemen, we have a minute 30. Mr. Wyatt?
Yeah, I don't consider myself old, Dave, but at the end of the day, I think I've been one of the loudest voices on the council as it relates to the issues, especially as it relates to finance, because I have the most financial experience than most of these people up on the stage. And at the end of the day, the things that I've talked about as far as having conversation with the community on how we make a budget, because we did participatory budgeting some years ago, and I thought it was a good idea, but we got away from that because it didn't let the mayor do what he wanted to do. We got to stop letting people just do what they want to do. Again, as I talked about the salaries, the overtime, those are the biggest things on the table. And it doesn't mean that we have to cut police and fire, because I've never said that. I've never said cut police and fire. I said cut the overtime. And I made a proposal during this last budget to cut $10 million of the overtime. It was met with deaf ears. Why? Because the administration, it controls a lot of the demands or the ideas of the council, because they're all beholden to one person. And that's the reason why we're in the position we're in right now, because we can't make sound decisions because the second floor dictates all those things. But at the end of the day, these things fall back on the taxpayer over and over again. And again, in 2025, it happens again for 2026.
Mr. Scanlon, obviously Mr. Wyatt invoked you.
The request to cut the budget line in half has fallen on deaf ears because there's contracts that exist that we are contractually obligated to, that were collectively bargained, that we have to pay overtime for certain things. The council member mentions the number of fires are down, certain types of crime are down. We don't have a volunteer fire department. We don't call people in from home when the fire breaks out. They have to be staffed at the hospital. There's minimum staffing that exists and things like that. And if you take a look at the overtime numbers, unfortunately, you see the expenditure going up. But if you look at the number of overtime hours being worked since I became mayor, they are trending downward. There's managerial rights that we've implemented in order to make sure that those numbers continue to go down.
Mr. White, the next question is actually to you.
I think,
Mr. Whitfield.
I think I was included in that in terms of experience in that.
This next question is going to be yours.
Okay.
You have 30 seconds to respond, Mr. Whitfield.
Well, I'm the only candidate up here who has managed people, managed a budget of over $60 million, has managed every crisis in the city over a course of 40 years. I'm the only candidate with that experience, and so I take great umbrage with that being, linked as a politician or whatever. So that's all I would say. I'm the only candidate that has that experience, and the mayor is a manager, not a legislator.
Thank you. We now have to move on, gentlemen. Mr. Whitfield, in 2017, you retired from your role as fire commissioner. During your tenure, your department issued a vote of no confidence. While you've had a highly visible advocacy career, you have not held a city position since. What went wrong as commissioner that you feel you can improve on in your bid to become mayor?
Well, first of all, that vote of no confidence is not indicative of my performance at all. If you look at the demographics, if you look at the vote, who controls the unions? South Buffalo controls the unions. That vote was almost 100% South Buffalo, as opposed to the rest of the department. So is this support, this union support, police and fire support. So that is not true at all. And you need a leader who is willing to speak truth to power, who will say no, and who will advocate for the residents of this community. That is not the union's job. They advocate for their constituents, and God bless them. I love the unions. I'm a union member. Okay? But the truth of the matter is, as a leader, you need someone who is willing to speak truth to power. I know about overtime. I'm the only person up here who has managed it. I'm the only person up here who has negotiated contracts with these unions and managed them very successfully. Very successfully. During my term, I'm very proud that the men and women of the Buffalo Fire Department in this entire city, because I managed all of the crises in this city, whether it was 7 feet of snow in South Buffalo, whether it was the Bethlehem Steel Fire that burned for 11 days, whether it was H1N1 virus, all of those things I managed. That's leadership. And you have to be willing to speak truth to power, and that is what I did. And so if you look back and you look at that, they did that. But that did not affect me, did not affect my service to them or this community.
Mr. Whitfield, thank you. Mr. Ryan, this next question is to you. A number of your primary public safety proposals are either already in practice or have been tried in the past. You stand against a citizen police oversight board, and your opponent is endorsed by the Buffalo Police Union. How do you intend on accomplishing your public safety goals without the full support of the city's finest? And do you have any new public safety ideas to offer?
I have a strong record on public safety because nothing is more basic for the people of the city of Buffalo than being safe in their homes and safe in their neighborhoods. And in the state legislature, we give money every year to do training of police officers, technology upgrades to city, violence interrupter programs, programs to fund youth services to keep kids busy off the street. Programs like Pastor Giles' Peacemakers program. Those are all effective. We need a modern, comprehensive approach to public safety, and that includes all of those items. I was dismayed when I saw the acting mayor's budget this year, where they actually cut money that was supposed to go to Pastor Giles and the Peacemakers. And they actually cut money that's supposed to go to youth programming. We know youth programming keeps kids off the streets. It keeps them occupied, and it brings crime down. So we need a comprehensive, modern approach to policing. My approach to policing has been backed by former Commissioner Joseph Gramaglia. I am confident in my plan, and I'm confident that my plan is a modern approach to public safety that will keep the people of the city of Buffalo safe, and it will keep them all treated fairly, and I will make sure we have accountability and transparency from the police department, because that's the basics.
90 seconds, and we begin with Mr. Scanlon for rebuttal.
I think the senator has an issue with facts. We are not cutting youth programming. I've spent my entire time in public office providing youth programming. In the South District, where I represented, free sports camps in the summer, free educational camps, just to name a couple of things that we've done for our youth. And when it comes to a history of production, the senator talks about at the state level when it comes to public safety, I'm not sure really what he's talking about. He's a strong advocate for a number of the bail reform measures that took place that have led to people in a revolving door back out in our neighborhoods, making neighborhoods unsafe. Not criminal justice reform. We need criminal justice reform. But bail reform and the measures and the things that he did as a state senator are leading to unsafe neighborhoods. He mentioned we should have a comprehensive modern approach to policing. Well, I announced that yesterday. And it's been in place for more than a month, where we have officers out walking through our neighborhoods, engaging our residents, engaging our business owners, collecting information. The vast majority of the information officers usually get are from crime reports, 311 calls, things like that. But it's a small portion of the actual information that tells the story. So our officers are going to be out there engaging with residents, engaging with business owners, providing people with surveys so we can get to talk to them about why they think things are happening. They've been asking for the Buffalo Police Department to be more engaged with them, to be more accountable, and through this process, they're going to be.
All right, moving on, Mr. Scanlon, this next question goes to you.
In response to that, you use my name in this?
But gentlemen, if we keep going back every time, two people will speak. I want to hear from everybody. We're moving on to
He just made egregious allegations about bail reform.
You made allegations about him. Same thing. He got 90 seconds. We're not going to keep going back and forth.
We need to move on.
We have to move on, gentlemen. You can address it in the next question if you like.
Mr. Scanlon, this next question goes to you. In April of 2024, Erie County Sheriff's Chief of Narcotics, DJ Granville, crashed his county-owned truck into multiple vehicles on the city's west side. The alleged cover-up is now under investigation by the Sheriff's Office and Buffalo Police. Granville donated the maximum $2,000 to your campaign, and Granville's wife ran petitions for your campaign. You're also endorsed by the city's police union. What do you say to people who are critical of how all of this has been handled and say this is just more of the same for Buffalo Mayor's office?
Well, I would say the important fact there is the date. You said April of 2024. I was not the mayor in April of 2024. And I did not find out about this incident until months into being mayor. It's an internal affairs investigation that's taking place. I do not insert myself into internal affairs investigations. That's how that process should be played out. I don't, again, get involved in those. But to the point of Mr. Granville donating, he's a childhood friend, someone who's donated to the campaign in the past. But there's been no interaction with the campaign since this has been going on. And we'll continue to make sure that the Buffalo Police Department is doing things on the up and up. We have a new police commissioner, 37-year member of the department, who takes these things very seriously. And again, through the brief conversation I had with him when this first came to light, I made it clear that to the commissioner, I will not be involved, and I will find out the results of that investigation at the same time everyone else does.
Gentlemen, thank you. This next question is to all of you, and we will prompt you in terms of your answer. Almost 10 years ago, the death of a young boy in a crash on the 198 sparked a massive change for how the state and the city of Buffalo view that roadway and whether it should be turned into a parkway. At the time, the state proposed more than $100 million to implement changes. Years of talk and inaction are putting that money in jeopardy, and it may already be too late. In fact, the Greater Buffalo Niagara Regional Transportation Council just removed that $100 million from its plans through the year 2030.
So we begin with Mr. Wyatt. What will you do to ensure progress is made on generational projects like the 198 and the 33? And what will you do to get the state to return money earmarked for the 198 and ensure $1 billion from the state is still available for the 33?
You know, Marley, the big thing is it's always a lack of community engagement. We're at this issue with the 33 because of the lack of community engagement. There was supposed to be a full environmental study. It wasn't done These folks have asked for that. They've been impacted by the negativity of it not being done. And so I think that's the biggest issue. I will work with the families and with the people in those communities to get that money back. But again, when we just give people a little bit of information and we don't give them the whole story, and we're not doing a full court press on making sure that the things that are done are in their best interest, that's when we come up with the log jam. That's when we come up with the pushback from the residents, and that's why we're in a position we are with the 33 right now. That should have been done. Now, I don't agree with however we do it. If you fill it in or if you go over it, that should be something that those groups that are meeting for the last 10, 15, 20 years, that should be something that they should be listened to. But at the end of the day, what they've been asking for as far as environmental study should have been done. It should have been full, complete, because we know the negativity and the impact that has happened for decades. So I will work with residents and individuals who are interested in those projects to make sure it happens. I'm afraid, because of what Trump has tried to be proposed just recently on Bailey Avenue, that this money might get pulled. So we have to act with urgency, and we have to act collectively as a community to make sure we protect those other dollars.
Mr. Wyatt, thank you. Mr. Whitfield, same question to you, sir. What will you do to ensure progress is made on these generational projects like the 198 and the 33? And what will you do to claw back that money from the state?
First of all, I will represent the people of this community. I'm the only candidate on this stage in this race that fully supports the restoration of Humboldt Parkway and the Scajaquada. I found it not hard to come to that conclusion. I believe that the people in this community deserve leadership that is willing to take a stand on these issues. That is the quickest way to restore the east side of Buffalo. That is the quickest way. There's $1 billion, over $1 billion that is currently there. That is the quickest way to address the discrepancies and the disparities that are on the east side, but not only on the east side, because this project is transformative, not just for East Buffalo, but for all of Buffalo. Buffalo cannot be what it could be without the east side of Buffalo being restored, and this project will do that. I will stand with the people for that purpose. This is easy, and it's a shame that we have leaders who shirk away from this and make political decisions and try to be politically correct about this issue. This is an issue that the people deserve to know today where they stand on, period.
All right, Mr. Ryan, the same question goes to you now.
Let's talk about bail reform.
If you will,
Scanlon,
I'd like to focus more on the 198 and the
Dave
33.
said I could answer in my time.
I know.
Your minute's
So, Acting Mayor Scanlon always mutters about bail reform. But bail reform, that's straight out of the Republican playbook. My last two Republican candidates, they attacked me on bail reform. But my core of my public safety message is things must be fair and equitable. Before we did bail reform, the holding center was full of young black men who lived in poverty. They would spend days and days in the holding center only to appear in front of a judge to have their case dismissed. The only reason they were in the holding center is because they were poor. And I joined forces with Majority Leader Crystal Peoples-Stokes, now Congressman Tim Kennedy, and we changed the bail laws. The holding center is no longer
You have 30
full
seconds. Let's talk about the 198 and 33.
young black men. But I will tell you this, we may not have got it perfect, but we got it right. And I will not go back to criminalizing poverty and refilling the holding center with young black men.
Mr. Scanlon, we are moving on. And what will you do to ensure progress is made on these generational projects like the 198, like the 33? And what can you do to try to claw back some of this money from the state?
Yeah. So as you mentioned, this is state funding and state projects, right? And the city of Buffalo has very little say in that point, but that doesn't absolve the city of Buffalo of being involved. I think we are all aware of the incident on the 198 that led to this discussion, and we're all very aware of the long-term impacts of the 33 project from a half a century ago and what it's done to the adjacent neighborhood there. I think the best thing that has happened is the full environmental study to make sure that we know the potential impacts on that surrounding community. I don't go out and make declarations or proclamations without having all of the information. And once that happens and we have all that information, I will sit down with the community and have the City of Buffalo serve as convener and make sure we bring in all interested parties into the conversation, the people that live in that community and who are impacted by that project, along with Assembly Majority Leader Crystal Peoples-Stokes, who's been leading that project, to make sure. You're talking about state funding that may be clawed back. I hope that our state representatives fight for that. It's been taken away on their watch, and I hope they go back and fight for that.
Mr. Tyson Thompson, same question to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think what we're seeing across the board is that we have electeds who make great promises, and they do the photo op, and they promise all of these great things. At the end of the day, nothing gets done. But constantly we see, even currently right now, career politicians arguing for power, but not for progress, because we don't see it. It's not even our infrastructure and our roads, on performing schools, or anywhere else in the city of Buffalo. You know, I don't care if it's the Skyway, the Jacquetta, or the 33. All of these has been going on for decades now. We haven't gotten any results. You know, we need bold leadership, new vision for this city. The way things currently work is just the status quo. And yeah, they're up here talking about what they could do, but they haven't done anything yet. Just more promises, promises, promises. But what have the city of Buffalo actually gotten? Nothing. So as mayor, I plan on addressing this issue by engaging the community. I think sometimes people have an arrogance that where people are just automatically going to come to them. But this is a blue-collar, working-class city. People have to get up, get the kids ready for school, go to work, do the shift, get home, pick them up, make dinner. Now they have to come out to a community meeting. We need to be using our resources to engage the community wherever they are, meet them where they're at, use empathy and compassion and turn that compassion into action. These are the things that are going to create a thriving city, a thriving infrastructure, and make Buffalo ultimately better.
Mr. Tyson Thompson, thank you. Gentlemen, we're going to move on to our next question. Businesses, especially restaurants, are finding it difficult to do business in downtown Buffalo these days. Toutant and Dinosaur Barbecue, they closed just since the beginning of this year. Marble Rye, they have said that it's been a difficult couple of years for them. My good friend Nick Patillo over at Osteria 166, they are scaling back their dinner service this summer. If elected, what will you do to make doing business downtown easier? And more importantly, what will you do to make downtown Buffalo more attractive for visitors, especially those visitors from our suburbs? Mr. Tyson Thompson, back to you, sir.
Oh, man, that's a really great question. I think one of the greatest things that we could have did was to bring the Bill Stadium to downtown. But unfortunately, electeds couldn't get it done. They didn't want to speak truth to power out of fear maybe of political capital being lost or whatever. But I think in really to make downtown and our restaurant industry thriving is to have a better culture, is to listen to the restaurants. What do they need to feel supported to thrive in this economy? We're facing an economy right now with a guy in the White House who are fighting for tariffs, wars. We have inflation. We have, just infrastructure just messed up in the city of Buffalo. We have a tourist problem. Toronto, that is 2 hours north, is a lot colder in England, where they have a thriving city of industry, of entertainment, of food, of tourism. Why can't Buffalo be that? Well, I think it's because that over the last decades, the status quo has just been to just let things happen. Let's promise a big deal. Let's get reelected, but let's not do anything about it. We have to bring people into the fold. We got to make sure that we're listening to people and bringing them into it to be engaged. From there, we have to have initiatives that really address the core issue of restaurants. Other than that, we have to make sure that we're collaborating with our people, that they're always around, and that they feel supported in this endeavor.
Mr. Tyson Thompson, thank you. Mr. Scanlon, next to you, sir. What can you do if elected to make doing business in downtown Buffalo easier?
It's not what will we do, it's what we've been doing over the course of the past 8 months. I can tell you that immediately upon becoming mayor, I required all of our people to be back in City Hall to make sure that our workforce is contributing to the vibrancy of downtown post-COVID pandemic, where we now have 25,000 or fewer people in downtown Buffalo on a regular basis. We have engaged large employers and had conversations with them to encourage them to bring their employees back into downtown. Some of them are doing that. We have established business advisory cabinets so we know that what the issues are that our small business community is facing. We will continue to engage with our small business community. We've established a small business grant program that will assist people through downtown Buffalo, and not just downtown Buffalo, but in our neighborhoods and other commercial corridors. So it's not what will we do, it's what we will continue to do. And when comparing us to other cities, why we can't do things, we're money in, service out operation. And to compare our tax base to Toronto and what you might be able to do is a little difficult. But we are going to continue to work on projects. If you see that what we did with our capital budget was the largest in the city's history. We secured funding through a unique opportunity, a creative opportunity, where we issued bond anticipation notes in order to secure large infrastructure projects that we were going to lose when I became mayor because we didn't have the money to front it. But now we've secured that money, and that's a project on Main Street, Bailey Avenue, Jefferson Avenue to help assist our small businesses throughout our city.
Mr. Tyson Thompson?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, using other cities as case studies for success is not to say we want to copy, but it's to say that how can we make our city better? And, you know, what you're proposing, it sounds good, but we haven't moved the needle. The question was that there are a lot of businesses in the city of Buffalo that are deprived, depressed, and going out of business. Your initiative that you're proposing hasn't really moved the needle at all. You know, we have to be more holistic in our approach. These things are happening all across the city. You know, Buffalo is a working class city. You know, people are taking out every little bit of their life savings to open these businesses. They should feel supported. They should have grants that actually make sense. And a lot of times the system is convoluted. For example, my mother had bought a home recently, a few months ago, and you know, trying to navigate the system is always complex and confusing. Try to get her windows done, and you know, I'm a smart guy. You know, I went to Harvard, went to Columbia, went to all these degrees, Canisius College, and then HBCU called Morgan State. But even I had a hard time, and the everyday person feels that when they're trying to navigate systems in City Hall, that there's so much convolution, there's so much red tape that nothing can get done. So yeah, he could talk about the grants, and every other administration can, and so can everybody else, but at the end of the day, people can't get to it because the system is too closed. Opportunity, they say it exists, but the door to opportunity is closed. We have to make things more better and more accessible for our citizens.
All right, thank you. Mr. Ryan, if elected, what will you do to make doing business downtown easier? And more importantly, what will you do to make downtown Buffalo more attractive for visitors, including from our suburbs?
You made some very good points about Buffalo doesn't look outward. You know, they don't look at what's happening in Pittsburgh. They don't look at what's happening in Toronto. We sort of have a closed view, but we need to start looking outward for ideas and to see these other Rust Belt cities that have made faster recoveries than the city of Buffalo. But you know, let's face it, downtown Buffalo, it's empty. There is not a vibe going in downtown Buffalo. We got to get back to doing the fun stuff. You know, everybody remember Thursdays in the Square? Those were fun concerts. It brought people downtown and made people want to come to work so they could go after. We used to do the Gus Macker basketball tournament. But in really the last 12, 13 years, the city of Buffalo, they've just cut off all the reasons that you want to be downtown. And during the same period of time, they stopped doing capital investment to downtown Buffalo. So the streets are a mess in downtown Buffalo. The sidewalks are problematic. You know, the state's put money in to do the Main Street program to get cars back on Main Street. But the city of Buffalo needs to be a partner. We need to have small grants available to empty storefronts to allow them to do some minor repairs to get pop-up businesses in there. We just need to get it going in the city of Buffalo. And I'll appoint a liaison to work with small businesses who have to go through this boondoggle of up and down in elevators back day after day. Small business owners can't afford that. It's got to be a clear path to getting a business open in the city of Buffalo.
Thank you. We have to move on. Mr. Wyatt, we do have to move on.
We have to move on, guys.
Mr. Wyatt, if
all that
elected.
back and forth between Scanlon and Ryan, let me get in on this.
How many times are we going, gentlemen, each time we can't go back and forth, otherwise it would be two people speaking the entire night. We're not going to do that. We're going to move on. We've not heard from Mr. Wyatt on this question. Mr. Wyatt, I'd like to hear from you on this question. What can you do to make doing business downtown Buffalo easier?
Mr. Graber, I don't know if I should take my glasses on, take them off, or leave them on, because what I've heard is that we're doing something. I don't see anything happening. I see that we give money to businesses like Gray Miller, and they take $561,000 and we let it go, and we say, oh, we don't have to pay it back. We have the Small Business Advisory Cabinet. Well, where are they? What are they doing? We're increasing we have a bed tax of 3% for hotels downtown. We're looking at selling parking ramps that's going to increase parking rates for those folks come down here. And we're talking about an event fee. We already have a high rate of vacancy downtown. Well, how are these things going to help people come downtown? How are we going to reimagine downtown? I do a festival that's free. Last year, we had 30,000 people to University United Festival. So I know how to draw people because I listen to people. I listen to the businesses. Many years ago, we had a train go through downtown. And the businesses were upset because they thought it was going to kill downtown, and it did. And now we're trying to bring it back. But we're trying to bring it back through our own conversations, not, as the senator said, going to other places and seeing what they're doing. And I think that's really important. We need to have a conversation with the businesses downtown. We need to understand what some of their struggles are. But if we fix our financial deficits, maybe there's dollars that we can give to some of these small businesses. But right now, we can't give much of anything. And so that's the challenge that we have to deal with. Again, I think, it's meeting with the people downtown and looking at what their struggles are, because right now, I don't see any of that happen. All I see is things that hurt more downtown than help.
Thank you. Mr. Whitfield?
This is just more of the same. The truth of the matter is that downtown didn't die a natural death. It was killed. When we took the stadium out of the city, when we took UB out to Amherst, when we put the 33 in, when we put the convention center where it is instead of the waterfront, all of these things would have been transformational for the city of Buffalo and downtown. And at every turn, we have leaders who, some of them may be here today, who have endorsed these things, have not spoken up on behalf of the residents of this community, have not advocated for this community in a way that they deserve. The truth of the matter is, any one of these projects would have transformed downtown, would have helped, and we continually follow these guys around while they make these decisions that are myopic, that are short-sighted, and that keep us constantly behind the 8 ball. We need new leadership. We need leadership that is visionary. We need leadership that will attract not only new businesses, but will support the ones that are here. We always look for new solutions, but the truth of the matter is that we have people here doing great work every day, struggling every day, who are not supported. And they should be supported by the mayor's office and by the government here in the city of Buffalo. And I think if they were, and if we had people who were not influenced by those people who have done well in these bad times. There are people who have done very well in these bad times, have benefited from these things, and they continue to do so. If we continue to elect career politicians, that's what we're going to continue to have.
Mr. Whitfield, thank you. Gentlemen, you have 90 seconds for whoever would like to rebut, if you choose to.
90 seconds total. Mr. Wyatt?
Thank you, Dave. I do agree with the commissioner. We have made a lot of mistakes, and those mistakes continue to fall back on the taxpayer. The issue of not getting the bills downtown was one of the biggest. And I would like to point the finger at the Pagulas, but I can't. I don't know if I can, because we should have been making this project shovel ready for the bills to be downtown. That would have fixed our revenue issues right there. But we missed out on another opportunity because we're always short-sighted and we're not looking at big visions. And so I agree, in a lot of ways, we have to have a bold vision. We have to have a smart vision. But at the end of the day, what we've been doing all along has not helped us. And again, we have Byron Brown 2.0 continuing to do the same things that he's done, tricks and gimmicks that are going to continue to impact the taxpayer.
Mr. Tyson Thompson, then Mr. Scanlon. Mr. Tyson Thompson raised his hand first.
I think this is a leadership failure across the board at both the city level and us at the state. This was the opportunity to really transform the city of Buffalo with the Bill Stadium. Not having it there, not having leaders actually fight for it, that's indicative of the leadership we're going to see in the city of Buffalo. They should be running for mayor of Orchard Park, not the Buffalo.
Mr. Scanlon.
Sorry, excuse me, were you not finished?
No, go for it, please.
Thank you. Mr. Scanlon?
Yeah, when it comes to the stadium, I'm not sure I was going to fix all the problems, but the city of Buffalo had very little say in that, despite the fact that myself and other council members were screaming from the rooftops that it should be downtown. But when it comes to downtown, we have certainly invested. And I'm not sure what people are talking about, 10, 20 years of this brutal downtown. I remember pre-pandemic, a bustling downtown, cranes up, things being built where news outlets across the country were extolling what's going on in the city of Buffalo pre-pandemic. We've hit a hard time like a number of other cities, but we're coming back through cooperation with our small business, our large businesses, and we'll continue to do that.
We have to move on.
Mr. Scanlon, thank you. We now begin with closing statements. As we said at the top, we drew names. You all saw that video. Sorry about the 0.5, by the way. But we all drew names, and so we begin with Mr. Wyatt. You have 30 seconds, sir.
Thank you, Dave, and thank you for the opportunity, and thank you all for being here. I've always been a fighter for this city. At every level, if you know me as a council member, I've fought for the people. And I think that's so important. I think too many people feel like we've betrayed them. We haven't been fighting for them. We haven't been speaking up for them. And I disagree with some of the folks up here that I've been a loud voice. And some people will say, oh, no, he's just grandstanding because he's running for mayor. No, I've been doing this for a long time. And I care about the people. And I hope that you'll vote for me as mayor because I truly care. And I've shown you. People are talking about what they're going to do. I've done it.
Mr. Wyatt, thank you. Mr. Whitfield?
Yes, thank you. Thank you again for this opportunity. Listen, we have a clear choice. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. to either move away from the status quo or to elect real, competent, trusted leadership. I believe that my lived experiences have prepared me for such a time as this. I believe that all of those things, I've worked from the east side of Buffalo through St. Joe's up through the firehouse to the White House. I've worked all around this country. I believe that has prepared me for this moment.
Thank you, Mr. Whitfield. Mr. Tyson Thompson, you have 30 seconds, sir.
The city of Buffalo is in a pivotal point. This is the first time in 20 years we've had an open primary with the most candidates ever. You know, I think that we have a real choice when we think about it. We continue to go down the path of despair and depression, of potholes, underperforming schools, a city where opportunity always is a reach away, or we could choose a new path, one of new vision and bold and dynamic leadership, one that has hope and promise. As the mayor of the city of Buffalo, I'm the most qualified person to do the job and address the systems. Thank you.
Mr. Scanlon, your closing statement.
Thank you, and thank you for hosting us. So over the course of the past 8 months, I've had the great fortune of serving as mayor of this amazing city. And I can tell you that the best part of that time is getting out and meeting, working with, and getting to know different residents, different organizations to make sure that we move Buffalo forward. And I can tell you that whether it's north, south, east, or west, the message we received is very clear. People are very happy with the administration and the direction it's headed. They're very excited about the future of Buffalo. They're very excited about our campaign, and you can see that. And as we move forward, I ask everyone to join us as we push Buffalo to the next level, where we are clean neighborhoods, safe neighborhoods, investing in our parks, our youth, and economic opportunities await them. That's what I want for my family and yours.
We have to move on now.
Mr. Ryan, you have the final word tonight, sir.
Thank you. I'm proudly endorsed by the Democratic Party, and Chris Scanlon is proudly endorsed by Carl Palladino. If you want your next mayor to be the mayor who has his pockets lined by Carl Palladino and MAGA Republicans, then Chris Scanlon is your guy. If you want Buffalo to be better, then we have to look in a different direction. I will bring new ideas to the city of Buffalo. I will bring fresh ideas to the city of Buffalo. And I will lift up every neighborhood in the city of Buffalo.
Thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen, each and every single one of you, for being here tonight. And thank you, the viewers at home, for joining us for News 4's Buffalo mayoral debate. Tune into our smart TV streaming app, WIVB Plus, to watch an exclusive half-hour town hall with the candidates.
That'll begin in 2 minutes. Also, please make sure you vote in the primary election. Early voting starts on Good evening, everyone, and thank you again for joining us from the historic Kavanaugh Theater on the campus of DeUville University for News 4 Buffalo's mayoral Democratic primary town hall. Once again, I'm Dave Graber.
And once again, I'm Marley Tuskus. Over the past hour, the 5 candidates on the June ballot took part in a formal debate, answering questions by the News 4 team on several important topics.
Now we're asking them questions from both our live audience here tonight and from viewers sent in over the past several weeks. We're going to start with a viewer question about ATVs. And although this one was sent in from Terry, we received a ton of email questions about this. When the weather warms, illegal dirt bikes and ATVs swarm the city. This is not an innocent problem, nor is it a new one. Each year it happens, and each year local leaders like yourselves say they will crack down. Just last week, News 4 revealed an internal investigation is underway about whether a Buffalo police officer ran over a four-wheeler with his police cruiser. This is an issue that cost taxpayers money. Terry from Riverside said she was almost run over on her sidewalk last summer, and she wants to know, what will you do if elected to finally take back Buffalo streets from these illegal ATVs and finally hold people who carry out these illegal practices accountable? Mr. Wyatt, we begin with you, sir.
One of the things I know that's been a big issue, we've had a lot of ATVs driving up Bailey Avenue, driving on the 33, and I know the police have a policy that they don't do a chase. But we have to kind of have the community to assist us in locating where these ATVs are. That's what we did with the E-District Chief. He was letting residents contact him where these ATVs were. And we have to look at some of our laws, too, because right across from the E-District Chief station, they were selling ATVs. And I went and said, well, why are you selling these ATVs when you know it's a problem? And so we need to make sure that the city is on board and putting in laws to make sure that ATVs aren't sold in the city because they're not allowed to drive them in the city. And so we have to work more proactively with community block clubs to be proactive, because I do think that one of the things that did help was the sheriff's office using their helicopters to try to track this down, but we can't do that every single time. So we do need the community to assist us in getting that information out to the district chiefs, the police department, to trying to get to these people before they start riding up and becoming a menace in our neighborhoods.
Mr. Wyatt, thank you.
You have 90 seconds.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so obviously this is a quality of life issue. Whether it's people driving up and down streets, coming through parks, you're putting people in jeopardy, their safety in jeopardy. So the Buffalo Police Department, we've had conversations about increasing fines, impounding vehicles, whatever we have to do to make sure it's safe. Increase the number of cameras throughout neighborhoods so that we can see where these ATVs are going and where the people are parking them and where they're returning home with them, so that we can then approach them once they're done. Again, but using the different technology at our disposal, drones within the Buffalo Police Department, partnering with our different organizations and partners like Erie County, we'll continue to do that as well to make sure that the people that are using these ATVs are not impacting quality of life.
Thank you, Mr. Scanlon. Mr. Ryan?
So, you see it around the city, and it's scary. I've seen kids going down the street super fast on wheelies, no helmets on. It's only a matter of time before there's a tragedy and a loss of life. So we need to do better in trying to figure this out. I support the state law that bans the sale of ATVs in areas where they're illegal to ride. So under that law, nobody would be able to sell an ATV, either from a dealer or an individual in the city of Buffalo. That should help to cut down on some of the ATVs that are readily available in the city. But it's also important, this is a part of comprehensive public safety. We need to work with the community groups. We need to work with the peacemakers, back to basics, the groups that are out there in the community, talking to these kids, telling them about the dangers of the ATVs, but also talking to their parents and the neighbors to find out where they're parking the ATVs when they're done buzzing around the neighborhood. And that's really how we intertwine community policing, community programs, and the Buffalo Police Department. People in the neighborhood are going to be much more apt to talk to the community groups like peacemakers than they will be to talk to the police department on this. And we also just have to keep our kids busy. We need to stop making cuts to our youth programming. We need to keep the kids occupied in the summer, and that'll keep them off the streets, and it'll keep them from popping wheelies down our intersections.
Mr. Whitfield?
Yes, I think this is an issue that's larger than ATVs. It's a traffic management issue. We have people who are driving at excessive speeds throughout the city, whether it's on an ATV or whether in these Dodges or these different vehicles that they drive. It's a traffic management issue. I'm not sure where that department is, where the police department is with the traffic management, but I think we need to do more work there. I agree with all of the candidates. We need to, reach out to the community groups. We talk about the peacemakers and all of these boots on the ground organizations. In my administration, we will have community response teams who are trained and integrated into the first response system. They're part of that system, not outside of that system, who will be integrated and will be able to work within the communities. They're trusted members of those communities. And also, in my administration, we talked about police patrols and these kinds of things, which are great. And people want police in their community. It'd be much better if they lived in that community. So in my administration, like I did in the fire department, police officers will live in the communities that they work in, and that will help bolster, safety and community, safe neighborhoods. And so there's a number of things we can do. It's not a one-off. There's a number of things. There needs to be a policy and needs to be a plan, and I think we should work with the community to produce one.
Mr. Whitfield, thank you. Mr. Tyson Thompson.
Yeah, to address the issue like this, you really have to address it at a holistic level. One of the things I've learned through my entire journey in a professional career is that when you're pushing on one lever, you're pulling on another. So, you have to address it, public safety, because people are speeding through with ATVs that are not safe, and you might have young kids on them. So, I think there's a lot of good ideas on this stage, but we have to bring them all together. You have to work with both the city, and also the county and the state to make sure something like this is congruent. So that way, when no one in the city of Buffalo can buy an ATV, you have to bring people to the table who are used to dealing with these issues. Once again, I don't necessarily agree with the community response team. I believe we should be training our police officers to handle these things. We can have a task force that's particularly, trained and ready at the helm to kind of address more ATVs and chases, the same way with mental health and other issues. But I don't think necessarily relying on our citizens to get involved in emergencies or issues is the right way to do about it. We got to keep our people safe. That's the most important thing as a leader of the city, and that's what I plan to do as the mayor of Buffalo. Thank you.
Because this is very informal, we are not allowing rebuttals. We want to give the opportunity for everyone's question to be answered. So I do want to move on to News 4's Patrick Ryan, who is in the audience tonight. He's joined by some students who have prepared questions for our candidates. Patrick.
David Marley, thank you. I'm joined with Mayshawn, who is from the Buffalo Public Schools, and he has a question for the candidates.
Hi, I'm Mayshawn. I'm a senior at Riverside High School. What are your plans to improve safety in Buffalo Public Schools?
Mr. Scanlon.
Yeah, thank you. So for years, I think you've seen in municipalities across the country, mayors shy away from the schools issues. I think it could become very toxic politically for them. That's not something I've done since becoming mayor. It's not something I will do. We've established a great partnership with the Buffalo Public Schools already. If you see what we did with our capital budget, the largest in the city's history, it's $110 million, $55 million of that for the Buffalo Public Schools to improve safety, things like that in their buildings throughout the district to make sure their buildings are safe for teachers, students, and we'll continue to do that. I've established a tremendous relationship with the superintendent. Unfortunately, she is retiring. Fortunate for her, unfortunate for us. But I will quickly establish a relationship with the new superintendent and continue to work on partnerships like this. If we have to borrow for them, we will continue to do that to make sure we are implementing them. But we also have the Buffalo Police Department, Commissioner Al Wright, our Chief Young, who handles issues in the schools, continue to work with them to make sure that our schools are safe. Public safety is right at the top of my priority list. And if we aren't keeping people safe, we really can't do anything else. And that's whether it's in our neighborhoods and people want to walk into the store or a restaurant, but especially in our schools. If we can't keep our kids safe, we can't educate them. So again, we'll continue to work with the Buffalo Public Schools moving forward to the end that we have to make sure that we're doing that.
Mr. Scanlon, thank you. Mr. Ryan?
It's a tough question. I appreciate that. You're a senior in Riverside High School. You know the problems that exist in a lot of neighborhoods. But public safety it's a comprehensive program. So we need to make sure that we're working inside the schools, working with the school resource officers, working with the counselors inside the school. Our students are facing a mental health crisis. Kids are having a real hard time. In order to help them, We need to have full programs like the community schools model that I helped to fund through New York State. Those are programs where a kid comes to school, they get all their basic needs met. If clothes are needed, they'll help them with clothes. If they need counseling, they'll help refer them to counseling. If their parents are unemployed, they will help refer their parents to an employment agency. And they are running the Saturday afternoon academies, and all those things build in a full response to what's going on in our community. And what's going on in our community, is a lot of poverty. And we have to make sure that we fully address this. It's not easy, but we got to do it. Whether it's from walking to school to make sure kids are safe when they're crossing the streets, to make sure they're safe from violence in and outside of schools.
Thank you. Mr. Whitfield?
Yeah, first and foremost, I think what we need to do is to make our children our priority, and that's never been done. We need to wrap our arms around our children and love them and treat them in a manner that they understand that they are our priority. Our children have been traumatized. The socioeconomic, indicators show us that 60% of our children are in poverty. This is unacceptable. We have to do a better job at educating our children. We have to meet them where they are. Programs are great, but we need to make them a priority. We need to invest in them wholly. The mayor should be intimately involved with the education of our children, should commit to that. And they don't need programs. They need, again, to be prioritized. Programs come with that. But first and foremost, we must decide what is important as a society, as a city, and it has to be our children. And if they know that, if they know that they're supported, right now they don't know that. We see them as the problem, but we're the problem. We're the problem because we have not provided a safe environment for them. We have to address, many of our kids have pre-existing trauma, have vicarious trauma, have trauma. They come to school every day. Nobody has dealt with that. Nobody talks about that. So these mental health issues do exist, but we have to deal with the poverty. We have to deal with the lack of affordable housing. All of these things have to be dealt with holistically, and so that our kids can be safe and come to school and learn. And we need to bring trades back to the schools also.
Mr. Whitfield, thank you. Mr. Tyson Thompson.
Yeah, education is one of those things that are deeply personal to me. I mean, as someone who's experienced virtually every form of education in this country, Buffalo Public Schools, charter schools, the HBCU, private religious institution at Canisius, and then 2 Ivies, I understand that education is the best way to change a person's trajectory in life. I'm not talking about just by race or zip code or any other socioeconomic demographic. It is the best way of changing your life for the better. So, I think that the city needs to do a better job. And I think that leadership has had a lack of courage to actually step in at the mayor's office for the school board. We need to have decisive and dynamic leadership in the mayor's office that steps up. Oftentimes, that has been seen as a third rail, as a thing that they don't want to touch. As mayor, I plan on working with the school board and also with the state to make sure that the mayor has some accountability structures in the system, whether it means appointing the superintendent or also 2 at-large members in the school board. But the mayor's office has to have some kind of accountability structure. A large percentage of our property tax goes to the Board of Education. It's dropping a bucket compared to the rest of the funding they get, but it's a big portion for the city of Buffalo. I think with that, we need to renegotiate how can the mayor help out with the city in education.
Thank you. Mr. Wyatt?
Thank you, Marley. Thank you, young man, for the question. When I first got in office, one of the first things I did was establish the University District Youth Council. I don't think we make our youth a priority. I think that we make them their afterthought. And that's one of the biggest problems. In our fiscal problems, we're not allowed to put more money into these organizations. I refer to Leona Harper, who had a Boy Scouts troop that had Eagle Scouts. I've never heard of Eagle Scouts. But Eagle Scouts are the top of the line for these types of organizations. I want to fund groups that have great outcomes. There's a lot of different groups doing positive things, but we can't give them money because we're fiscally strapped. And we don't seem like that's important. We have to make our young people a priority. That young man, what he's talking about, the integration with the city, city council and the administration and the Board of Education should have been done a long time ago. We don't interact. We don't work well together. And those bad outcomes come because we don't work together. If we're saying the same speech sheet of music, talking about children, talking about the outcomes, putting them in position to win. We have so many young people who are leaving the city. Why? Because they don't feel like there's any hope for them, there's an opportunity. And so as the mayor, I'm going to make young people a priority of my administration, as well as working with the Buffalo school system and all these other groups, youth groups, to make sure that young people know that we prioritize them and they matter to us.
Mr. Wyatt, thank you. We now go to a viewer question on the Buffalo Animal Shelter. This question was sent to us by Julie, who asks, regarding the ongoing issue of the deplorable conditions at the City of Buffalo Animal Shelter. It has previously been advised by Mayor Brown and his administration that a building has been secured as well as funding. Where does that stand? And if that turns out to be false information, what is your plan to resolve this ongoing situation to help the city shelter meet the pending New York State requirements? And we begin with Mr. Ryan.
So New York State passed a new set of rules about animal shelters. We gave cities years to come into compliance, but we also made state money available so cities could upgrade their animal shelters. Guess what? City of Buffalo never applied for the money. Instead, they said they're going to take the fine. The City of Buffalo operates a kill animal shelter. It is barbaric, it is behind the times, and we can do better. But this isn't a new issue. Year after year, this issue's come up, and every year we hear a new promise from the city. Next year, we're going to build a new shelter. Next month, we're going to build a new shelter. But they've never applied for state money. The money was there to help build a modern animal shelters where we aren't killing dogs because their owners don't get to the shelter in time before they're destroyed. I did a press conference in front of the animal shelter. The stories I heard were so sad about the treatment of those animals. I'm a dog owner. I'm a dog lover, and under my watch, we will not be killing dogs at our animal shelter.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Mr. Whitfield.
Yeah, as a dog lover, animal lover, I too would support, the city of Buffalo doing something humane in terms of an animal shelter. I'm not familiar with the issue surrounding the current shelter, but I certainly would advocate for humane treatment of our animals and also of our people. There are homeless people on the streets in the city of Buffalo that are not getting the attention in some cases that these animals get, and we need to address that also.
Thank you, Mr. Whitfield. To Mr. Tyson Thompson now.
Yeah, I would say the City of Buffalo leadership has a miraculous ability of getting everything wrong. There's always issues in terms of convolution and confusion. We say we have this initiative or this thing that's going on and never happens. I think as the leader of the City of Buffalo, we have to first analyze what's going on and why things are the wrong or why they are, and then synthesize real solutions that are going to impact the system. Working to the animal shelter, seeing how we can find humane practices so people aren't losing their pets, their loved ones, and people who are part of the family. We have to find ways to be equitable, also empathetic and compassionate, and then find those compassionate ways and turn them into action. So as mayor, it's pretty simple. You engage the people, you engage the organizations and the stakeholders, and then you find the solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tyson Thompson. Mr. Wyatt.
Thank you. I think that I know Councilmember Nowakowski, this was a big issue for him. And again, it seems as though the council members are always last to get the support to address issues such as this. I think that we need to be listening to one another, making certain that these types of issues we can work around. Because right now we're cash strapped. And so if this is a priority for that district council member and for the residents in this city, we should be addressing it. It shouldn't have been something that we put on the back burner. Unfortunately, it just seems as though we don't plan very well, and it comes up to situations like this where we're under the gun and we have to make a decision. I would support funding this particular project because I don't believe in killing animals. Now, I'm not an animal lover, but my grandchildren, well, Poppy, you can't do this. And I agree with them. There are people who want to do humane things for animals, and we should be doing that. And we should be using the taxpayer dollars to make sure the things that the state has mandated, we've done. But too often, we have a knee-jerk reaction to something when the public starts outcrying, and then we're scrambling. That's something that under my administration we will not continue to do. We have to have plans together. We have to make sure we can fund projects that are important to the residents of the city of Buffalo.
Thank you, Mr. Wyatt. Mr. Scanlon.
Thank you. I cannot speak to what the previous administration did or did not apply for. I cannot speak to Mayor Brown's statement about another location. What I can tell you is that since I became mayor, we've been working on this. And there is a new location identified that we have identified that's actually going to be announced later this week. It's a unique public-private partnership that is going to create a new shelter location that's going to be fantastic for the workers, for the people who care about the animal shelter, and most importantly, the animals that are there. We'll be announcing it later this week. And again, for those who think this is some last-minute thing or that we scrambled to do this, if you take a look at our budget that we proposed in early April, we have allocated resources for additional positions, a new executive director, things like that to make sure that the services being provided there are second to none, and that the animals, the animal lovers, and everyone else involved will make sure that it's a top-notch facility.
Mr. Scanlon, if I may, you were on our air a couple of weeks ago for our monthly Ask the Mayor segment.
Correct.
We asked you about the Buffalo Animal Shelter then. You said in a matter of weeks we will have something. 2 weeks. It's been longer than 2 weeks. Are you able to provide any more information since you're saying this is going to be released this week? Here it is Tuesday night.
Yeah, I can tell you that was 2 weeks ago. I said we're announcing it 2 weeks. We're announcing it later this week. It's on the west side of Buffalo, and you will hear that announcement later this week.
Who's the private-public partnership? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Scanlon.
I mentioned it earlier. I can keep talking if you want.
No, we can move on.
We're going to move on. We're going to send it back to Patrick for another question from the audience.
Marley and Dave, thank you so much. We're joined now with another student from Buffalo Public Schools. It is Zaire. Zaire.
Hello, I'm Zaire Brown. I'm a senior at Hutch Tech. My question for you today is, affordable housing is a major issue in the city of Buffalo and has been for generations. If elected, what steps will you take to bring down the cost of rent and make it easier for people to buy a home?
Mr. Whitfield.
Mr. Whitfield, this question is you, sir.
Yes, thank you, Zaire, for that question. Housing is a very important issue in our community. There's a lack of affordable housing in our community. We all know that. It has to be a priority of the city. Housing it's not just the place to lay your head. Housing impacts your productivity. It impacts all of the aspects of your life. And so we need to do something to make sure that people in this community are able to get housing. 60% of the people in Buffalo are renters. And so we have to do something to make sure that they are in safe, affordable housing. We should adopt good cause eviction in the city of Buffalo. Rochester and Buffalo has it. We should do a number of things to make sure that the people in these communities and that do have housing, whether they're renters or owners, are able to stay in their homes, are able to afford the rents in that, are not being displaced by the new development that is coming. So I think that we have to do, again, holistic things that are include all of these other things in terms of our affordable housing issue. It's not just building houses, one-offs in a community. We have to make sure that we have a plan, a citywide plan, so that we're not just building housing, but we're building community and we're building neighborhoods.
Thank you. Mr. Tyson Thompson?
That is a really good question. And, over the last 70 years in the city of Buffalo, the population has declined on a steady rate. And then in the recent census, we had the first modest uptick in population growth, plus the pandemic, which attributed a whole bunch of structural systemic issues in the city of Buffalo. It's reasons why the same run-down house that had, people in it are now, $30,000 house now costs $300,000 with no improvements to it. We have a lead problem in our infrastructure, in the pipes, they're in the walls. We have crumbling roofs. People could barely pay their mortgage or rent, let alone fix, the roofs or wherever it is, it's crumbling on the city. So it's a structural, it's a systemic issue. The way that we address it is that first we got to make sure that when people are renting out homes, they're up to code. A lot of homes are just barely making like the bare threshold to be able to be habitable. Second, we got to make sure that we have initiatives for residents. Once again, Buffalo is a blue-collar city for the blue-collar workers. A lot of people are struggling right now. It's a tariff war going on, inflation, people are hard times having jobs. It's not a lot of economic opportunity in Buffalo. It's a Rust Belt city. There are a lot of things that goes into it. But the most important thing that we can do as a mayor is that when you do have a home, it's safe. And then also that there are programs out there that doesn't have red tape that people can get to and access these services and resources.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Wyatt.
Thank you for that question, Zaire. Affordable housing is critical. But it doesn't seem that it's a lot real critical, though, the way we act. I think that we need to be looking at funding more CBOs, community-based organizations that do the type of infill housing so that we can ramp up the number of houses that we are doing. I know recently the acting mayor and the county executive came to my district for a press conference regarding infill housing without including me. Without including me. Now, you got to understand, look at that picture. But I support taking those lots that we have and building new housing, and not just simply building new housing, but building doubles where generational wealth can be accumulated, that someone can be living in the lower and renting out the upper to do those types of things. It should have been done a long time ago. We're the third poorest city of our size, and it seems as though our mindset is always on keeping other people down. I think it's time to build people up, come with fresh new ideas, ramp up the number of infill housing that we put forth, and work more closely with community-based organizations, because right now the city takes a role in it, and I think the city gums up the process because it's so... I don't even want to talk about it. It just wastes your time, and it frustrates people, just like I'm frustrated right now. But I think those community-based organizations that do it well need to be supported and funded so they can get more infill housing, more housing for residents that need that quality housing right now.
Thank you. Mr. Scanlon?
Thank you. Well, as far as that press conference, the county set that up, and I was on the same emails that the council member was on, but I was there. So I'm not sure why he feels he wasn't included. But as far as affordable housing, it's not what are we going to do, it's what we are doing. I can tell you about a tremendous program that exists right now, partnership between the City of Buffalo, Erie County, and the Buffalo Erie Niagara Land Improvement Corporation of the Land Bank. But I can tell you the program that exists now is not the program that existed when I became mayor. A couple weeks after I became mayor, there was a story, an article out there that talked about homes being built, affordable homes being built for $475,000, things like that. We got to work with our partners, re-engineered that program, dropped the construction costs considerably by re-engineering the homes, and now we are building 110 homes across the city of Buffalo, the vast majority of them on the east side of Buffalo. Internally, we have streamlined the process for purchasing property from the city of Buffalo. I completely agree that in the past it has taken years to purchase property from the city of Buffalo, and that gums up the process. But we've streamlined that process, and people will be able to get their hands on property much faster. And we are also having at the table now with the people who build homes, whether it's private, nonprofit, whoever it might be, and we are looking at different strategies on how to build homes. The city of Buffalo owns 7,000 vacant lots. I don't want them. They need to be put on the tax rolls and we need to put people in homes, put on the tax roll, and contribute to the overall health of the city of Buffalo. The city of Buffalo's done a great job of putting rental units online, but I want to create homeowners.
Thank you, Mr. Scanlon. Mr. Ryan.
Can't get more basic than a roof over someone's head. I've spent my career doing work on housing. I was a legal services attorney. I helped to fight illegal evictions, helped to fight foreclosures to keep people in their homes. And I spent years litigating housing discrimination cases to stop racist housing practices. I've worked the last few years, I've talked to a lot of members of the community, people from the faith-based community, community developers, community groups, and we came up with a plan called the City of Good Neighborhoods. There's three main components of the plan. Help keep people in their apartments. If they're behind on rent, we can help people catch up on their rent. Second is to make it so units are quality and habitable. So if people have doubles, often older seniors, they can't afford them. We got a grant program to get that unit back online. That brings rents down. But the most important is really the infill housing component. That we have a program to build new singles and doubles all over the city of Buffalo. That program is funded the second year in a row from New York State, $170 million. And I went to the city council to ask for support on this. Councilmember Wyatt, he gave the support and he voted in favor. Chris Scanlon voted no on housing money coming to the city of Buffalo. I'm just wondering if it was a private-public partnership with Carl Palladino, if maybe he would have voted yes.
All right. Mr. Ryan, you directly invoked Mr. Scanlon's name. Mr. Scanlon.
No, what I voted against.
If you directly invoke your opponent's name. Gentlemen, we are moving on.
Let's move on.
Gentlemen, we are moving on. Mr. Scanlon has 90 seconds.
We are focused on...
Gentlemen, please. Please, Mr. Tyson Thompson, please. Gentlemen.
You said no rebuttals.
Gentlemen.
Please, let's move on.
Hey! Enough, folks, please. We are still continuing with this debate. We are on a broadcast live right now. We are moving on. Mr. Scanlon.
So we are focused on home ownership at the City of Buffalo. And, you know, for most people, a home is the largest asset they're ever going to have. We want to put them on a path to home ownership and make sure they create that equity and generational wealth that they can pass down. We're also creating a financial empowerment center to give people the financial wherewithal to be able to manage a home. It does us no good if we put people in a home and 6 months later it's foreclosed on. But when it comes to Senator Ryan's program, I didn't support it because I refuse to give landlords that take advantage of our most vulnerable residents money to rehab their homes when they're in housing court and taking advantage of our most vulnerable residents. And when he talks about the amount of money that's brought in, it's very misleading.
Hang on, please. Hey, we're definitely not going to talk over each other. Mr. Ryan, please, sir. Please.
We'd like to get to the next question at some point, too.
We would.
Go ahead. Go right ahead.
Great, let's do that.
Thank you. All right, this next question is for Mr. Tyson Thompson.
Hey.
Our viewer named Karen asks, every day we hear about autos being stolen in the area. What are the solutions you are proposing to combat this problem?
So with autos?
Cars, yeah.
Being
vehicles,
yeah. So I think crime is one of the most complex things that we can address. It's so multifaceted and needs so much comprehensive, holistic approach to it. One of the best ways that we can stop car thief or auto theft is by having people have economic opportunity. People having access to quality jobs that pay people dignified wages. That stops people from wanting to steal cars. We have one of the worst rates of poverty in this country for children and also for adults. One of the, I believe the third poorest city for its size, one of the top 10 poorest city for children. There's a whole bunch of things that goes on with why crime happens. So first we have to make sure that people have the ability to have a thriving life where they don't have to return to survival mode just to make a life. People deserve access to good education. People deserve access to good health care and also to good jobs. When you have all of these things coming together, crime goes down and eventually so does car theft too.
Thank you, Mr. Tyson Thompson. Mr. Wyatt.
This is a big issue. It's been a big issue for a little bit of time. And I think that, again, our youth are involved in a great deal because we don't invest in them. I just was at a gun anti-violence event the other day, and they talked about the funds that are not available for young people to keep them busy, to keep them active doing other things instead of stealing cars. I know the Kia Boys was a big issue, but again, I believe that a big portion of that is the lack of money for youth programs. How do we expect the youth to perform and do things on a positive way when we don't fund them for activities that they can do in their community center, flag football? I know the senator talked about, we used to do Gus Macker. We got to give the youth things that we believe that there's things that they want. And a lot of it is engaging the youth. We don't really talk to them. We just tell them what we want them to do. I think that we need to have more forums in which we engage the youth, talk about prioritizing some of the things they want. I know one of the things that I've done in my district is we have a brand new facility in Shoshone Park that you can use year round. Those types of things, I believe, will help lower the rates of theft, car thefts, and those types of things when we give youth other options instead of just, putting them to the side and waiting for a problem to happen. Then we're doing a knee-jerk reaction to something that we can't resolve very easily.
Thank you, Mr. Wyatt. Mr. Scanlon?
If any of us is familiar with auto theft, it's me. Mine was stolen a couple months ago. So I'm very familiar with it. But I can tell you that through our new policing model where our officers will be out engaging the community and trying to find out where this activity is more likely to take place, things like that, we'll continue to do that. Like I said, we'll be giving people surveys. They can respond anonymously to make sure that they don't feel threatened by participating in this and making sure that they feel safer in their communities. The other issue is you have to hold people accountable. You talk to officers, how often does someone steal a car, they're released, they're found in another stolen car the next day. And because of things that took place during some of the bail reform measures, people aren't held accountable. And judges have lacked discretion to be able to hold people accountable, but they're back out on their city streets the next day, stealing 2, 4, 8, 10 cars, and nothing being done about it. So we have to make sure that we urge New York State to repeal some of the bail reform measures to hold people accountable as well.
Thank you, Mr. Scanlon. Mr. Ryan.
Here we go. Back to the MAGA talking points. Let's put young black youth back in jail. That doesn't work. But let me tell you about my rental repair program that the acting mayor said somehow benefited slumlords. We have 4,000 empty apartment units in Buffalo. Most of those units are owned by senior citizens, mostly female black women on the east side of Buffalo who bought doubles in the 80s or 90s. Their husbands have passed on, they're living alone, and they need repairs to the upstairs unit in order to get it back online. But they're seniors on a fixed income. So this program does so many good things. It gets units back online. They're quality housing units. It puts money into seniors' pockets. And most importantly, it helps build generational wealth in communities that were intentionally denied generational wealth for a super long period of time. This is a win-win-win program. We're going to get more units online. That's how you're going to bring rents down. And the program is right now on the street. It's administered by Belmont Shelter. It's administered by Broadway Fillmore, Essence Sweat at the East Side Development Corporation. They decide who's getting this money, and this money is going to go to low-income seniors, and I am proud to have backed that program. But I wonder again, perhaps, if the program was open to Carl Palladino, maybe they would have been okay voting for it.
All right, we're going to go to Mr. Wyatt, but after
we're moving on. We're moving on.
After we finish with Mr. Whitfield, I apologize, Mr. Whitfield, we will then go to 90 seconds for either Mr. Tyson Thompson, Mr. Wyatt, Mr. Whitfield, whoever, because we did not allow you to rebut previously. So, Mr. Whitfield, please go ahead about the car theft. I know.
Really? Car thefts, okay. Listen, you know, this is a national issue. This is not specific to Buffalo. We need to look outside of the box. We need to find out what other communities are doing to address these issues. We need to deal with the socioeconomic drivers of poverty and crime within our community. We need to address all of those things, and we need to do this holistically. Also, it's not just young people stealing cars. This is organized crime. This is insurance fraud. This is a number of other issues that nobody's talking about. And so we need to look at it from a different perspective, a different lens, and not always blame our youth as the problem, you know, as part of our problem, you know, or black people. That's true, because who gets criminalized in these things? Young black men. And so policing is not always the answer. We need trusted messengers within our community response teams. They're active in over 100 cities across America. There's data supporting them. That's the kind of intervene we need within our communities. We need people who look like us, who talk like us. We need police officers that live in these communities. All of those things will help address these issues.
Thank you, Mr. Whitfield.
Mr.
We
Tyson.
have 90 seconds, Mr. Tyson Thompson, if you'd like.
Yeah, I think to oversimplify auto theft and crime in the city as young black kids is grossly wrong. And we need to make sure that we're saying that. Second of which, you know, we can tout all of these years of experience and all these initiatives that these candidates have done, but nothing has really moved the needle. It's the same old thing that's happening decade after decade, year after year. We got people who are in office saying all these great things they have done, but nothing changes in the city of Buffalo. Just more poverty, more potholes, more underperforming schools, and more other BS. We need new vision for the city. We need bold and dynamic leadership. The things that are working right now aren't working. We got to move forward, Buffalo. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tyson Thompson. Now we'll send things out to our Patrick Ryan, who has another question from the audience. Patrick?
Thanks, Dave. I'm here with Brianna. She is a student here at Deauville University. Brianna.
Hi, my name is Brianna Jurla. I'm in my third year at Deauville University. I'm studying pharmacy, and as a commuter, I pass through exit 9 Porter Avenue onto Porter Avenue, and I see a lot of homelessness down the street, and I was wondering, for all of you candidates, what is your concrete promise to help out our least fortunate Buffalonians?
Mr. White, it's you, sir.
Thank you for that question. I totally agree. Again, our mismanagement of our funds hurts the least of us in our community. I know that there were proposals years ago by, I believe, Council President Pritchett that talked about tiny houses. for those people, a pilot program. It just seems like so many times we just push the homeless away. We put up barriers so that they can't go to those safe havens, even if it's underneath a barrier, overpass. We close that down. We don't give them other alternatives. So I will be looking at how do we address that, working with organizations that are addressing homelessness, because a lot of times those groups are less funded. They're not given the dollars that they need to really help impact homelessness, because part of that homeless issue is probably mental illness too. So it has to be a whole package deal. It just can't be, let's put someone in a home. It's got to be looking at the issues that they're dealing with and how do we help them with that issue. We have a gentleman that's walking Main Street all the time that's homeless, that is bothering people that we put in and out of jail. That's not the answer. And so we will take a concrete effort working with Erie County, because they deal with some of these things. If we really care about the least of these in our community, we'll make a concerted effort to look at ways to help them and not just put them in jail or isolate them and keep them homeless. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Scanlon.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. You know, obviously when we talk about homelessness, that's not the symptom, right? It's typically the byproduct. And whether it's mental health issues or substance abuse or where those two intersect and the things that it leads to, that's what needs to be addressed, the symptoms. So in my time in office, I've been doing that, working with places like mental health advocates and others to try and address mental health issues throughout our community, with our citizens, with our employees, whatever it might be. And we launched recently a program, a partnership between the City of Buffalo, Erie County Medical Center, the Erie County Sheriff's Office, the Buffalo Police Department, Buffalo Fire Department, called the Crisis to Care. And it's a call and respond model that's a little bit different to make sure that we're increasing the number of beds available to people, the services available to people. I can tell you that I've lost a number of people in my life to mental health issues, and it's something that's very important to me, something that I've worked on my entire time in office and will continue to do so. And I think that this Crisis to Care model is going to really impact that. What we don't want to see is homelessness being criminalized. And I think far too often in the past, with the responders, the police coming out by themselves and just handling that, it's led to that. People being hauled in and taken to either the holding center or wherever else it might be. But now through the communication of these different partners, again, Erie County, the City of Buffalo, and a vast number of mental health professionals and organizations, we'll hopefully see a change in that in the near future.
Thank you, Mr. Scanlon. Mr. Ryan.
To quote my colleague, Mr. Thompson, I'm not seeing a needle moved on this at all. I walk around downtown Buffalo. I see unhoused people. I see people suffering from mental illness, and we have to do something about that. Last year, I was able to receive funding from New York State to put locally to do a community response team, to put them together to work with the unhoused mentally ill people to make sure that we have that connectivity. During COVID, a lot of people, they lost the connection between their mental health provider and medications. So we have to work with the community response teams to make sure we get people linked back into the mental health field. But at the bottom of this program, it's complex. At the bottom of this problem, housing has got to be a big component of it. You know, for a generation, Buffalo's only housing plan was to demolish houses. Now we've demolished so many houses that there's a housing shortage. We don't have apartments for people to go into. We have people living in hotels in Hamburg, Buffalo families, because they can't find a house in Buffalo. So we really took out so much of the housing market by our sort of non-stop demolition program. And that's my program to bring 4,000 rental units back online. It's going to take the pressure off the housing market, and it'll give everyone a place to live in Buffalo regardless of their income level.
Thank you. Mr. Whitfield?
Yeah, listen, I agree with much that has been said on this topic by the candidates up here. This is an issue that is going to require all of us to work together. This is not, one thing over here or one thing over there. We have to address all of these things holistically. We have to do it in such a way that's empathetic and that's caring for all of us. There's a lot of people that don't have a place to live because they don't have a job, not because of mental health. They can't afford the rents in Buffalo anymore, and they are cohabitating with their parents or others, with other family members, all over the city of Buffalo. So this is an issue that's much bigger than just mental health, than just a housing shortage. It's something that we all need to get together and work on together and make sure that people have a roof over their head, make sure that we connect them with the services that they need. It's something that I did as Commissioner of Fire. We worked with other agencies and tried to make sure that we would connect people with the services that they needed. We have to use the people that we have in these positions because they touch our communities first. They touch our residents first. They see things and they can report those up and they can help intervene. The community response teams, as was said, is another way to do that. Trusted people within the community, but they have to be integrated into our response system in such a way as they're respected by the responders also.
Mr. Whitfield, thank you very much. Mr. Tyson Thompson, you have the final word of tonight's town hall.
All right, thank you so much for the question. It's a really good one. You know, by and large, I'll say that any resident, most residents in the city of Buffalo, is about a paycheck or two away from being homeless themselves. There are so many people who are struggling because of part of the system. As mayor, I intend on making sure that every community member in the city of Buffalo has access to resources needed to have a thriving life, a place to call home. You know, there are so many things that goes into being a homeless person. I mean, if I didn't have, you know, 5 brothers and 2 sisters and a mom who were still living, then I might be homeless myself. You know, the economy is really, really bad right now. Even with all of these degrees, I could possibly be struggling to find a job. You know, mental health is a real thing. So when you're addressing homelessness, you're really addressing a lot of socioeconomic issues at one time. And the important thing is that you can't be an expert for everything as the mayor. You have to collaborate, be inclusive in your process. Speak to all of your electeds at the city, county, state, and federal government to make sure that we have all the resources needed in this city to build a thriving community of people. And as mayor, that's what I will fight for day one. Is leading with empathy and compassion and turning compassion into action. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you, gentlemen, for what was at times a very lively debate in Town Hall. We appreciate it. And thank you for joining us at home for News 4's mayoral Democratic primary Town Hall on WIVB+.
Our Kelsey Anderson is just outside the doors here at the Cavanoki Theater with a debrief of both tonight's debate and Town Hall. Good evening, Kels.
Marley and Dave, thank you. And I want to say a nice job to Marley and Dave. I really felt like they kept things on track throughout the night. I'm now joined by Jess Schuster. We're going to kind of go over the high points, some of the low points of the debate, and then the town hall Q&A afterward as well. I do want to warn folks that there are people streaming out of the Cavanoki Theater behind us, so hopefully you can hear us okay. All right, let's talk about who do we think the winner of tonight's debate was?
You know, in a debate with 5 people, I think it's almost impossible to pick a winner. I think that it was clear in this debate that you had 2 frontrunners who, by all accounts, seemed pretty evenly matched. And obviously those were the acting mayor, Chris Scanlon, and State Senator Sean Ryan. But when you have 5 people on the stage, I think there are certain topics that get over-discussed. There are things that get forgotten. We had candidates return to previous questions, and their answer. They weren't given rebuttal time. We saw other candidates eat up entirety of the rebuttal time. So, you know, I would say this was basically exactly what most voters expected it to be, a debate between Sean Ryan and Chris Scanlon with, 3 sort of good but probably minor league players on the stage with them.
Let's talk about those minor league players. Do you feel like they got enough time? I spoke to a Buffalo voter who was sitting next to me. She said she was actually surprised, delightfully surprised by some of their answers, but she said, I haven't really heard from them that much. She didn't even know who maybe some of them were and what their platforms really were. Do you think any of them made big movements tonight?
Do I think they made big movements this year? Probably not. Do I think that some of them have plans? I think they were pretty open about the fact that they may all want continuing futures in government. And look, I think they all did fairly well. I think when you have candidates, a diversity of candidates, sometimes there are people who sort of shine in situations that you might not expect. Right now, I think the real question becomes, do those 3 candidates on the ballot become spoilers for the 2 main candidates? And how are those campaigns going to respond to these 3? So I think the bigger question coming out of tonight is, are these candidates being taken more seriously, and will we see some of these major campaigns, the campaigns that we know are are fundraising well, are well executing on their plans, will we see them start to pick off some of these lesser known names, or will we see them start to bolster these lesser known candidates to affect their main opponent? I mean, those are the real questions that campaigns have to work out. I don't know the answer to it. Yeah. I think all 5 individuals on the stage did a fairly decent job tonight.
Let's talk about the senator, Sean Ryan. He came out, I thought, pretty hot. Yeah. Then he didn't even answer a full question. He wanted to rebuttal something from, about 5 minutes ago. He didn't answer the question about the 33 and the money and the funding that was set aside and is being taken away for that project, that billion-dollar project. Do you think him coming out so hot made him look a little bit like a jerk, or do you think it helped his campaign?
Look, that is a campaign decision that I am sure the consultants and the advisors on the Ryan campaign thought very deeply about. I will say it did appear that Sean hit the marks he meant to hit. When he came out with the Palladino pledge early, he talked about Carl Palladino multiple times. I'm sure at this point we have all seen the negative ad. That is a topic that it's clear his campaign wants to focus on, and if that was his goal, I think Sean executed very well on that plan. Will that resonate with voters? The only perfect poll is an election, so I guess we'll find out, if not in 2 weeks, maybe sooner if we start to hear from folks. But the reality is that negative campaigning can be very effective, and so if he has the data to back that up, I think he did very, very well in his goal tonight.
All right, let's talk about Palladino here. He brought that up immediately.
He did.
And that has been in that attack campaign of his. Scanlon said, I have not received $1 from Palladino, but then mentioned William Palladino. I guess talk about, do you feel like Scanlon rebutted that enough, and do you believe him?
I'll be completely honest. In order to sort of stay neutral for tonight, I didn't look at any campaign finance filings beforehand. I do know that according to campaign finance law, LLCs are able to give money, spouses are able to give money. So there's a lot of ways for any candidate who wanted to take money from someone who may not be the most popular to sort of obfuscate that. It all comes out in the wash. You're going to see it eventually. You're going to see Ellicott Development. You're going to see names that you might recognize as related. When the mayor says he hasn't taken $1 from Carl, that may be true. Now, the Ryan campaign, and I have seen in ads, has pointed to donations from LLCs, from different organizations that appear to be tied to Carl Palladino. I don't know the veracity of whether or not Carl is still a partner in those, but I would assume that some of their fact checkers certainly can provide that backup. In terms of whether or not I think William Palladino, who the mayor acknowledged and said was my friend, is he Carl? Carl had a long history in this community, and he was very well known. I'm not sure it translates to his son, but like I said, the Ryan campaign, if they have the data to back that up, Sean Ryan did a very good job of driving that message home tonight to the viewers who were watching this debate.
Let's talk about some of their movements on stage. We know that those two particularly were standing next to one another. What was their body language like, do you think? And then I noticed something interesting at the end. They all shook hands at the end of the debate, except when the senator went up to the acting mayor. Scanlon did not shake his hand.
I think they certainly maintained collegiality, and regardless of the outcome of this primary, they will have to work together. I mean, you are talking about an acting state senator and the mayor of the second largest city in New York. They have to get along, right? And so regardless, and you're only talking about a primary election. So it is realistic to think that these two individuals will be involved in a general election potentially in November. I think that they did an okay job of keeping things cool. They clearly don't want to be friends, and I think their sort of grimaces, their smirks, their the way that they responded to one another and the questioning, it's clear that there is certainly a rivalry there. There is certainly some bad blood. Look, they competed very heartily for an endorsement, and so I would expect that. I don't think by any means they were the worst two I've seen on the stage. It certainly wasn't. The debate was very well moderated. Dave did a great job. Marley did a wonderful job. Really kept them cool. But you could tell there was some tension.
There was some tension. I think we expected that. I think Tyson Thompson was the first to bring up another city here and kind of try to do that compare game. He brought up Toronto. I don't know how good of a comparison that could be, but it has been brought up through this campaign. Rochester, Syracuse, how maybe they don't have as many financial problems as the city of Buffalo. no one answered tonight the question about raising taxes.
Yeah, and
they danced around it.
That was the first question that Dave asked, and I didn't think anybody directly answered whether or not they would raise taxes. I think the reality is probably every candidate on the stage understands that the city of Buffalo probably needs to raise property taxes. I know I said earlier to you, I think it was Mario Cuomo, if I'm misquoting him, please correct me, but they say that you campaign in poetry and you govern in prose. So I think that there was a lot of creative answering. You heard some accusations of gimmicks. But I think the reality is when you talk about cities like Rochester, like Syracuse, like Toronto even, again, completely different country, but these places have higher property taxes. You see the acting mayor for the first time requesting authorization to levy an occupancy tax. Cities can levy their own sales tax also. I don't think anybody in the city of Buffalo wants to go down that road of levying an additional sales tax. And so the reality is that all of these candidates probably know they need to raise property taxes at some point and by some increment over a period of years. Do I think everyone has a specific plan for that? Probably not. I think certainly at least Mayor Scanlon and State Senator Ryan, given all of their experience, understand that to be the truth.
Yeah. I loved the question about restaurants and businesses in downtown. Someone up there said downtown is a ghost town. I can't remember if it was Whitfield or Tyson Thompson, but you know, you go downtown, and we've reported on all these businesses that are closing, specifically restaurants that are closing downtown. Do you think anyone had a really good answer to that question? How to bring more foot traffic to the city of Buffalo?
You know, I think that the answer, I actually thought the acting mayor talking about a return to work for employees, I think that's important, but I think also you need strong partnerships with the private sector who also need to bring employees back down to work. He talked about the Thursday concert series, and he talked about, and part of it is that, you know, when there's a strong city of Buffalo, the ripples affect the entire county, they affect the entire region. So having those big conventions, those big draws, those big arts and cultural events really do make a difference. I don't know if anyone gave a good answer. I will say I fondly thought about all the Gus Macker tournaments I played in as a high schooler and a middle schooler even. And yeah, I do miss those. I mean, those were fun times. I think that post-COVID, a lot was reorganized in the world, certainly in this country. And so my hope would be this is the sort of start of a new Buffalo renaissance. I'm not sure that either of them, or any of them, I should say, projected a complete plan, but the acknowledgement, I think, is the start.
Yeah. My mom wouldn't let me go to Thursday in the Square. I was too young. Let's talk about those other three. We have about 3 minutes left, so maybe 1 minute on each.
Sure.
Tyson Thompson, what did you learn from him tonight? Did he answer the questions fully, do you believe?
So my impression of Tyson was that he is very much an idealist, and that is such an important thing in government. I think that he was right to say that there are lots of times that we just accept the status quo. That said, you know, and I understand right now there might be a little bit of an anti-government and anti-incumbency bias. Experience does matter. And so I would question, if he were elected, what would an administration look like? Would he be able to start on day one and be effective? Certainly he talked about his time working for Crystal Peoples-Stokes, and all that is important work. But I think with a little bit more refining, he could be a very formidable candidate in the future.
In the future. Wyatt, Councilman Wyatt, what did you hear from him that you really liked tonight?
You know, the University District, I think, has been well served by the council member. He certainly had a lot of ideas. He talked a lot about community engagement, and he does. His University Fest does bring out probably thousands of people.
And that was one thing he did bring up. He said, I have a festival that does bring out 30 plus thousand people.
County legislators. I mean, he really has done, I think he has experience, but it is hard when you're running against a sort of status quo when you've been a part of it for that long. So while, you know, he said, I don't think I'm old, and I would agree with him, he's certainly not old. Sometimes old in political years is not the same as being old in age. So, you know, I think he's always going to wear a little bit of that baggage. And I think that while he does have a lot of information, and he certainly speaks and presents himself well, he's probably going to pick up votes in this race that he would pick up in his normal council race. And that might be the extent of his appeal.
And Garnell Whitfield, he kept bringing up, I have done these things in the past. I have been a successful leader. And he said, being the mayor of Buffalo is being a manager.
Yeah,
he's done it.
And I agree. And I thought his point about the mayor being executive was important. You know, he talked about his experience negotiating. I also thought his point about the job of management, of supervision with the unions is to sort of be the heavy. And that can be very difficult, especially when you're somebody who's come up through the rank and file, like in Buffalo Fire. Again, I think he's a very effective public speaker. He had some really good ideas. I just don't see him building enough of a groundswell of support or fundraising enough to compete with the two primary candidates.
All right, political analyst Jess Schuster, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
I'm Kelsey Anderson. Thanks for watching.